Welcome to the Open to Hope Show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, with my daughter and co-host,
Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Well, Heidi, we've got a great show today and a great guest, I must say.
We have two great guests today, Mom, and you happen to be one of them.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about some dating over the age of 60, which is a very interesting experience if you've had a loss or if you're a single person who are looking to meet somebody who's a senior. I would guess I would call it senior dating.
Absolutely, Mom. Dating after loss, are you ready? And this is such a relevant topic because my father died nearly 2 years ago, and you started dating.
I did.
And I was like, wow, you're dating, wow, okay. It's been amazing to watch it, and so you're gonna talk to us a lot about your experience, the do's and don'ts, how to get out there, how to know if you're ready. So we are going to be joined today by Dr. Frank Powers, who is your fiance.
Yes, my fiance.
Hello, Frank.
Lovely to be here.
So nice to have you. So Frank is a psychologist. We have something in common because we both graduated from Columbia in the social work department. We're both social workers and psychologists. Mom, you're a psychologist, so we've got 3 psychologists on set.
Yeah,
that's scary.
Got some good advice going
That is a
today.
little scary.
Exactly. And Frank also had a dad that died when he was only 15 years old.
Yes.
And as you all know, my mother lost her son when my brother was 17. And you are both writing a book together, which is pretty exciting.
Absolutely.
Yes, we're very excited about it.
Very excited. It is called Open to Love, Fearless Dating Over
at
60.
60, yes.
Because as Heidi said, I decided to start dating and started dating and learned a lot and found out that I didn't know a heck of a lot about dating since I hadn't dated since I was in high school. So
Wow.
It's been quite the journey and a fabulous journey, and I wanted to share what I'd learned. And then I decided I was going to do a chapter on online dating because I'd never done it, and I went online and I met the love of my life.
And Heidi, we had a wonderful time because we both come at it from a different perspective because she lost her husband, but I had been divorced for several years and had been online dating before she decided that she was going to write a book and then get online. So I had more experience, and our first experience was meeting one another online.
Yeah, and what was interesting about it is that, to me, when I met Frank and talked to him about my book, I found a whole different perspective of somebody who'd had the loss due to divorce. So I thought, what better? I said, Frank, would you even consider doing the book with me?
And it was exciting to think about that this experience that I'd gone through could possibly help other people, because I really wanted that to be available.
I love it. So I want to start out asking you both how you met. I know you were online dating, which I have to be honest, I've never done before, because I've been married for over 30 years, so we weren't online dating back then. So yeah, so you both got online, you looked at each other's profiles, you wanted to meet the other person, I'm guessing, and then,
well,
and then what happened?
I wanted to, I wasn't honestly thinking of it as exactly a person. I was thinking of it as data for the online dating chapter, because there are many.
I was merely data.
Because there's so many other aspects of dating I wanted to hit on. You know, how are you compatible with somebody? A big one for me, frankly, was, am I ready to date?
Okay.
You know, Heidi, I always advise people, if you've had a loss, and I would say the same thing if you've had a divorce, any kind of a loss, that you try to get some support. And you know, you and I have always talked about the fact that peer support and information are the #1 things that help people. So I went to Cara in Palo Alto, which I live, which is a wonderful grief organization, and they matched me up with a counselor. And I'll have to tell you, they matched me up with a great counselor because I wanted a male for some reason. I guess I was thinking that I wanted to go on, I don't know, but I got a male, and he'd had a child die and had a wife die.
Wow.
So the matchup was unbelievable.
Right.
But my #1 concern with him for quite a while, I talked to him about that I was lonely and I would like to date, and my big concern was, am I ready?
Yes.
It really was. It was my #1 concern.
And finding out or deciding when you're ready is a huge thing for most
Yeah.
people. It certainly was for me. I mean, I was probably divorced over a year, and I was feeling like maybe I don't want to be alone the rest of my life. And that was a big realization. And that's one of the things that we deal with in the book is, are you ready? When do you know that you're ready?
Yeah,
Well-
especially after a loss.
And it's a good question. And when do you know?
Well, there's some aspects of it about grief and loss that we know, whether you're still in that early stages, whether you're moving on. And one of them is, they call it the yearning and searching
Yes,
cycle.
right.
And that's where you're looking. Are you looking for people? Do you see them in crowds? I know when your brother died, you talked about seeing him in crowds.
For quite a while, I was surprised. Yes, I thought I would see him and I'd run up and it wasn't him.
So, yeah.
And if you're divorced, you begin to start feeling that, oh, not every woman is going to take advantage of me or do something that I don't want them to do. So you begin to feel like, okay, it doesn't have to be a failure. Failure is a big thing for divorce. I'm not sure that you feel that kind of failure with the loss of someone.
No, I don't think you feel failure. I think what you feel immediately is the overwhelm of jobs, but also loneliness. But I know that's in divorce too for
Yes,
women.
exactly.
But a huge amount of loneliness.
Yes,
And I
that's
was
right.
with my husband for 60 years, so the amount of loneliness that you feel and missing that other person.
And the way that divorce and death are similar is you've got the death of a marriage and the death of a person and the death of a marriage.
It's both a loss.
You've got, right.
Because
they're
no
lost.
one wants to get divorced. I mean, they don't get married to get divorced. And so when you get a divorce, you do feel like, well, gee, I failed. Would I be a good candidate to get back into a relationship? Could I? Or should I?
So, Frank, were you afraid to get back out there? Did you ask yourself those questions?
Yes, and I talked to friends and I talked to other associates and really in a sense said, well, when are you ready to do that? And most of them said, well, when you get loneliness, you get lonely enough, you'll know. You'll
Okay.
know.
So you all gave me these 3 dating readiness questions, and we went over the first one. Are you still struggling with the separation, divorce, or the death of your partner?
Yeah, struggling now. Are you still struggling? That's the question. Is it a
Yeah.
struggle? Is it?
How much time are you really that you're taking to think about your partner and all the places that you went and all the things that you did? Are you still spending a great deal of time with that partner, even though they're passed away?
I think there can be some anger aspects too, because
Yes. They left you.
Yeah, they left you, and even with death, there can be an anger
You
aspect.
can feel abandoned in both places. in both cases.
Places, yeah. And you be able to feel a little unworthy. Well, gee, I failed. How can I possibly think that I could have a success this time? And that was the one nice thing about meeting your mom was, hey, it can happen.
Right.
You can fall in love again, and you can enjoy it, and you don't have to be alone.
Exactly. And, we were talking earlier about comparisons. With a death, do I compare Frank to my late husband? And honestly, the reality is, as a senior, I think that you pick somebody that's more compatible with you. You're more alike. I don't want to say compatible because
I think in our practice, both of us realize that when you're younger and you're in your 30s, you have time to pick someone who you're excited because of the difference, and so you can work it out. When you're 60, you don't have the same amount of time to work out those differences. So we have come to the realization after working with so many people that it's better to find someone who's more similar to you after 60 than it would be when you're 30. You have time to work it out.
Yeah,
the problems.
and you're not going to have kids together, so you don't worry about that. And it's just a whole different world.
And
It's
I
a
would also
different
think
thing.
at your age, you both know more about what you want. You've been in relationships. You're seasoned. You know, and so you would know what you're compatible with and what you're looking for and
Well,
what you want.
you know what you want, but you
Okay.
also know what you don't want, which is just
Good
as
point.
important.
Yeah.
You want to use the experiences to say, well, you know, this, I thought we could work this through, this particular issue around money or around religion or around politics, and we thought we could work this out, and then you find out, hey, no, some of these problems are bigger than you think they are when you first get together.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I think also with loss, it's interesting because I've, you know, naturally gotten around, the widows have kind of gravitated and supported me and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I find that the ones who are dating are not spending a lot of time talking about their deceased spouse.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Yes.
It's really interesting because they are opening a space to bring, we like to call it the one,
Yes.
in. And, you know, you could even keep, so there was a book that talked about keeping a drawer empty, actually creating physical space for that person to
Yeah.
come in. But I would just say,
Well, Heather did that, my sister.
Yeah.
When she got divorced, she eventually was at a place where she wanted to start dating again, and she read a book that said, clean out your one of the bedside drawers, clean up half of your
Exactly.
closet, leave it
Exactly.
empty. Leave places in your house empty for the possibility of someone new coming in.
There's an analogy that I've used in my practice, and that is, if you have a refrigerator and you have old, moldy salad pieces and fruit and meat that are rancid, you've got to clean all that out before you can put new, fresh things in. So you do have to clean out your refrigerator if you're going to invite someone in.
and
like
also
this.
your house. We recently visited a woman who's in a senior center in Palo
yes,
Alto.
that was so
the V.
sad, yeah.
And we went into her apartment, and she had moved her whole house into this apartment, condensed it, and she had a story about every single thing that was in there, and pictures of her
Yes.
past spouse. Her
She was
husband had
living
passed
with her
away.
memories, and there
Yeah,
was no
she's
room
living
for
with her
someone to
memories.
come into her life.
Yeah, yeah, and so no surprise.
She wasn't even looking until we talked to her.
Yeah, and
then she
then-
started to get interested.
Yes,
That
and-
possibility
I
came
love
up,
it.
and
She's
she
in-
was like, you could see her lighten
Yeah, I
up.
know.
Yes,
All of a sudden,
amazing.
she's like gone from, well, here's this picture, and this is when we went on this trip, and
Yeah,
all that. And
Well,
then
she's
we
living in the past.
Yeah.
And not
Yes.
able to embrace the present.
Well, the idea that it was possible, and that's one of the things we're doing with the book, is really, in a sense, trying to
Possibility.
make it possible for a person to be open to the idea that they don't have to be alone, they don't have to live with their memories, they can actually have a life after 60
I
with
love it.
someone.
So you need to look at, are you ready yet? You need to think about these aspects. Are you ready to give up talking about your spouse or
Yes, right.
divorce? I think anger with divorce is heavier
It
than
is
with death. And
huge,
if
yeah.
you're holding on
Well,
to that anger, there's
you
no
wait
space.
for the person that you're looking at or talking to, it might be a potential date, to say something that reminds you of your spouse, and then you say, no, no, thank you, I don't want this.
Right.
So the anger really does play, I think, a bigger role probably for divorce, because a lot of divorces are not necessarily amicable, and people
Well,
you
there's
know,
still
have problems.
contact.
Oh, and if there's children still in that process, you know, they're still dealing with being parents together. And
Yeah.
that's
Whereas
another
with
issue.
with grief and loss in the senior, you're probably not taking care of kids still, and you don't have to
Yeah.
worry about the kids' response. And
Yeah.
even with divorce, but still, there's still, with
Oh,
the person
I-
still living, you've got holidays
Yeah, that's
to
right.
deal with and all that kind of thing. Whether they're going to,
and
whose house they're going to
marriages
go
of
to.
kids and things like that, where you come together,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's not nice,
they-
especially a divorce.
So,
Right.
so are you ready? You might think a little bit about that anger. How lonely are you? You know, are you willing to make that
Mm-hmm.
space? You know, to start out with. You know, or is it still so painful for you that you?
Sure.
And
I'm sure it was not easy for you and your sisters to suddenly have your mom dating someone after your father's death. I mean, I can imagine that that was not necessarily the easiest thing in the world.
Yeah, it was actually pretty hard at first. I think we had this vision that my mother was going to live out the rest of her life as a widow.
Yes.
And that's not
Many
fair.
children do. Many
It's not fair.
children. Yeah.
And I think that when she brought you into our lives, it reconfirmed that my father is gone forever, and this is our new reality.
Yeah.
And it was almost another loss.
Sure.
It's weird because we knew he wasn't coming back, but it was like, okay, he's really not coming back ever.
And someone might be taking his place, and
That's the other
not
thing.
an okay thing
and
to
I've
do.
got to tell you,
Yes.
while my kids embraced the idea of you two, the very first thing my daughter says was, "I'm not calling Frank Grandpa."
Well, after 60, it's kind of nice because you don't want to be called grandfather very often anyway.
I laughed because I said, you didn't have that expectation anyway.
No.
I said,
Thank
Shen,
God.
you don't have to. Nobody's asking you to do this, you know. So, okay, so one of the other dating readiness questions are troublesome thoughts or images of the person who died or left still impeding your progress? We've talked about that a little bit.
Yeah, well, we didn't talk about one thing. With a loss, some people have had a traumatic experience.
Yeah.
Like they may have found them, or they may have given some kind of mouth-to-mouth resuscitation.
Divorce court can be a very traumatic experience. I'll tell you, not nice.
Well, yeah. So, but if you've actually seen the death, you may, and you're repeating it in your brain or something, that can stop you from moving on. So there are some things like rapid eye desensitization. There are, you can get therapy, whatever, to help with trauma. Heidi, I know you're an expert in trauma. And
Yeah. We have a grief assessment early in the book, and what we advise people to do is take the grief assessment and see how much you've been able to get over the issue so that you can invite someone into your life. And we say to people, if they score high on the grief index, the assessment, that they probably should see someone or talk to someone or some grief group because they're not really ready.
And
So
also,
we're
you're
really
not gonna-
talking
you're
to
not-
people who are ready.
You're not going to attract people into your life if you're angry or in
You're
the
not.
throes of grief.
No, and if your
People-
life is still involved with the past,
Yes.
you're not going to have enough openness that someone will want to move in.
Well, I love the premise of continuing bonds, because continuing bonds says that after a death, you can remain connected with the person that died, but you need to reinvest in new relationships.
Yeah, right.
And otherwise, it's not going to work. So I mean, that's kind of what Mom you've done.
yeah, you're not going to resolve everything. Let's face it. You stay, but just that feeling that I can do it.
Yeah, I think that's the reason why we emphasize it so much in the book, because we realize that readiness is something that most people don't even think about. They're just living their life, trying to get through each day and whatever. But if you don't think about it, then you really don't know whether you're really ready to invite someone into your life, and that's a big decision.
Okay, so the third dating readiness question is, do you avoid going to places or doing things you did with your partner because it is too painful?
Yes, restaurants that I went with my ex, I just wouldn't take people to them.
Yeah.
And it's been a long time. Luckily, most of the restaurants have changed, so now I can invite people.
Yeah, there may be some of it, but I think places that you have to go to.
Well,
Yeah.
You may work out at a gym that you love, and I'll say the golf club. I have a golf club that I
Yeah,
love. That
that's
my
right.
husband was involved at the golf club with me, and it's hard to go back. It was hard. But I went back in, and I feel comfortable again now, and they know Frank, and
you went in as a widow,
Yeah.
and now you're going in as a fiancé.
Right. I must say, I get a lot of comment, but it's all positive. I don't know what they say in the background. I kind of felt like they were judging me about, is it too early, and that kind of thing.
Well, you do get a lot of judgments, whether it's divorce or death of a spouse, about, well, aren't you doing this too early? Aren't you honoring the person? And certainly in divorce, there's it's a little bit easier because you don't have to honor the person in the same way that sometimes I think happens. And,
you may not want to go to church or any place that you were coupled.
Yeah,
Well,
you
Mom,
were
I'm
there.
thinking about our beach house. So we had a family beach house that Dad loved. It was really his favorite spot.
Right.
And I think it just became too hard for you to go there because that was about a past life.
Right.
And so you sold it, which I thought was a healthy thing to do, and are embracing your new life, your next chapter, basically. It's hard to do that, but you're embracing your next chapter.
Yeah, I'll have to say something funny about the beach house, though. I decided that I would sell it, and I actually told my late husband, I said, because he'd been sick for many years, and I said, when you pass away, I'm going to sell Carmel. And he you know, didn't. He said, "Well," I said, "You know, it's your place. You love it down there." And I like it too. It's beautiful, but I'm a sunshine girl, and it's pretty foggy down there.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the kids, some of the family members, because I have 10 grandkids and 3 daughters, said to me, "Oh, you're not going to sell Carmel, you know, out of this group."
I didn't say that.
No, Heidi did not say it. But some of my family members did, and I said, "Well, why don't you guys get all your money together and buy it?"
Yeah.
Buy it.
I like
That's
that.
a solution.
I like that. If you want it.
If you want
Here
it,
it is.
buy it. There, I'll give you a really good price on it.
Yeah.
And nobody wanted to buy it. So anyway, it was good. So you may need to make some moves. That was too painful for me.
Yes.
Like Frank said, maybe there's some restaurants that you don't want to go to. I didn't want to go down there anymore. I wanted to go to places I'd never been.
Like Arizona?
Yeah, and I went to
And it's
Arizona,
kind of
where Frank's
exciting
from.
for us to start off with new restaurants and new
I think so,
places
too.
that
It's
we
really-
both
Yeah, that
like.
we're both going
Now,
together.
The golf club, though, is really wonderful.
So, yeah. So some things, I think you're making a good point. Some things are important for you to keep, and
Yeah.
some aren't. And maybe there is a favorite gym or something that you,
Yeah.
by darn, you're going to go to
And
anyway.
if
Or
there's
maybe you
enough
say,
time,
I can get another
Yeah,
gym.
it can neutralize over time. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden, when you start doing it with someone new, it now takes on a different
Yeah.
picture
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
changes.
I think
So-
it's a balance.
Yes.
A few, you know, maybe more things
Exactly.
you want to have are new, and you can
Yeah.
still bring in the
Right.
old, and you know.
But you can do both. You
Yeah.
can do both.
That makes sense.
One thing I want to really put a big, strong note on is that there's no time that's right for everybody.
No. And people are so individual, whether it's grief or whether it's divorce. I mean, some people go through and have an easier time with divorce, and some people have a much more difficult time, because sometimes it can take up to a year and a half for people to go through divorce.
Right.
So it's a lot of time to be in struggle. And sometimes that will take longer, and sometimes people are feeling like, okay, we both realized that we were not compatible with one another and we need to move on. Those people might be able to do it sooner. And you don't want to tell a person, well, just because you haven't done your year,
Right.
that you are not ready. Because actually you were ready quicker, but I think it's all the grief work that you've done over the years.
Yeah, I think it's a grief work, and I dated someone who had a spouse die, and
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
So
Sure.
they're different, different things for different times.
Yes.
But really, it's been absolutely wonderful, and I want to tell people that you're stronger than you think you are.
Yeah,
You really are,
and you're
especially
usually
over
readier
60.
than you think you are.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why the grief assessment, I think, is very helpful to people in the book, because they suddenly realize, oh, maybe I'm more ready to do this than I thought I was.
I
And
like
so-
that there's an assessment.
Yes.
I think sometimes what holds us back is other people's judgment. So I think this book
Yeah.
is really important because it's giving people support.
Giving them permission
I like that, Frank, giving them permission.
to be themselves and to go ahead and open their life to someone new, even after 60. I mean,
Or
most
70
people don't
or
think-
80.
Yeah, don't
I
think
was
they
gonna
can do
say.
it. Yes.
I mean, 80. I mean, you know, whoever
Exactly.
thought that you could, I
Well,
call it
people didn't
finish
live that
strong.
long.
Right.
You know, 1901, the average lifespan was 46 years of age, and now
Yeah.
it's in the 70s. So
And
there's
going
lots
on.
of people now that are, looking at having a relationship and needing to have a relationship, and basically don't want to be alone. That's what we
Yeah.
both realize.
And be smart. You can
Yeah,
be smart
you
about
can
it
be smart.
too. You can look for what you want. You don't have to just wait. I mean, somebody said to me, "Oh, you met online. That's interesting. You know, didn't your friends introduce you to people?" And I'm like, No.
No.
You know, how many people are there around and that you're interested in? And, you know, it just has to be all
And it is harder for women,
circumstance.
don't you think?
Oh yeah, because there'll be seniors past 70 or something. There'll be 150 women to every 100 men,
Wow.
and
Yes.
80% of women will be widows.
And certainly women in my practice, I felt a certain amount of empathy for them because it is more difficult. And I think that there are fewer men available.
Right.
So it is a bigger challenge for most women, I think.
So yeah, I think it is. And but women are courageous and industrious, and
At least one I know.
and I think, you know, it's just a deal of creating that space and that mindset and, you know, being interested in it and realizing you don't want to be a nurse or a purse. Women like to say that. You know, I
Yes.
hear that from a lot of
Yeah.
widows. And the reality is you can be smart about who you date and how you consider your profile.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that we deal with in the book is how to do this in a very safe, fearless way.
I like that.
And you need to be fearless, and you need to really realize that you're doing it in a very conscious, healthy, safe way. The safety is really important, especially for women. But there are many men who I've worked with who really, in a sense, got really scared about someone wanting to use them or abuse them. So
Wow.
women aren't the only one that gets afraid of that.
Right.
So for men and women,
Yeah.
seniors, people who want to do fearless dating,
How do
this
you
is a
do
great
it?
book.
So
and here's
that's
how
what
to
the
do
book
it.
is about.
And you can find more information at our website, opentohope.com.
Okay, thank you, Gloria and Frank. So, for all of those out there, the book is called Open to Love, Fearless Dating After 60. And you are our role models that you can date
We're
and fall in
living it.
love.
Yes, we're
We
living
are
it.
living it.
I love
And
it.
Thanks, everybody, for watching the show.
Yes.
And Heidi and I always want to remind you, and Frank too, if you've lost hope, please lean on ours until you find your own, and God bless.
The loss of a loved one can leave you feeling depressed, angry, alone, lost. But you don't have to face this journey on your own. Open to Hope is a free community for anyone who has experienced loss. Find support. Find help. Find hope. Give grief a voice at Open to Hope. For more information, find us at opentohope.com.
Adding hope to the darkness, you start on the trip to recovery.
Reach deep down inside and say, I am going to live on.
We laugh, we cry, and remember.
Hope without action doesn't work. Hope with action can change the world.
We always say, if you've lost hope, please lean on ours.